Boy, do I love that we live in a time where AI is making everything so much easier for us. Don't you love that AI is integrated into absolutely every single system you can think of? I love that it's integrated into Windows. Oh, it's so great that it scans all of your files and is constantly polling your drives and taking snapshots and screenshots of what you're doing on your desktop. Don't worry, it's for this recall feature, so it can help remind you what you were doing. It's a free service that's being forced on you, and this is a corporation out to make money. What are they doing with that data? Don't worry about it, it's here to help. As a matter of fact, AI is so helpful, it's even helping write new updates for Windows 11, and everything's broken. Oh, people don't like AI? They're desperately wanting to move to another operating system, but Linux is big and scary and they don't want to worry about messing things up? Don't worry, here comes Valve to save the day with the Steam machine. Not the one that failed. The new one. With the Steam controller. Not the one with the weird circly trackpads that's like concave. No, the new Steam. Stop reusing names, Valve. It's driving me nuts. People aren't gonna know what I'm freaking talking about. There's a new Steam machine. It's a box. You probably heard of it. It's the GameCube, and it's actually a pretty tantalizing deal, right? You get a pretty capable gaming box that has upgradable storage, upgradable RAM, all that good shit. It comes with SteamOS, which is a distro that is immutable, which means it's read-only. You won't go into terminal and accidentally break the entire operating system by messing up a command. That's good shit. Guaranteed to work with most of Steam. I mean, you can do basically most of your gaming stuff, and by most, I really do mean like over 90%. I just bumped the fucking camera. But it sounds like a pretty good deal, right? And they really want to minimize how much you have to actually use the terminal. There are cat hairs all over this desk, bunny. Actually sounds like a pretty good deal for like a first baby step into, Linux gaming. Or especially for everyone who's been stuck on a console and is really starting to feel the effects of being tied down to a certain corporation that knows you have nowhere else to go. And I'm not talking about any one in particular. Don't get offended in the comments. I mean all three of them. There's a lot of people, basically, that are actually looking at Linux for the first time. But, there's AI making our lives better again. See, they actually need, aside from our drinking water, they need, and aside from the power on the grid, it's gonna cause multiple blackouts and shit. No, what they need is RAM. And because they're gathering up so much RAM, the RAM prices are freaking skyrocketing to the point where the Steam machine was actually probably delayed and is going to be really expensive. But don't worry, AI's here to save us again. See, these companies that are investing in all of this AI data center stuff, well, if you've been paying attention, you'll notice that they started actually investing in cloud computing. Oh, you can't buy RAM or local storage? Don't worry, you just need a shitty little machine and we will have all of your processing needs and all of your storage on the cloud. Again, don't worry about what your data's being used for here. You don't have to worry about buying it yourself anymore. Buy this little tiny whatever PC and let us do the processing for you for a monthly fee that you can't negotiate. This is where the future of gaming is heading. This is where the future of computers are heading. Well, you know what? I say no. You guys want to take your first baby steps into PC and don't want to break the bank? I'm going to show you how. We are going to install Bazite, which is a Linux distro based on SteamOS. It's completely free, easy to install, and what are we putting it on today? We are going to put it on a fucking Atari. Not an Atari 2600. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the ATARI VCS. For anyone that doesn't know, TLDR, this is gonna be a quick recap because this has been in a few videos now. This is Atari's attempt at getting back into the console market. At least that's how their higher-ups advertised it. What this actually is a mini PC that you can customize and do whatever the heck you want that's designed for light gaming. Wait, so a Steam machine. Well, a little less, above the camera, a little less powerful than a Steam machine. Inside of this gorgeous case here, we are rocking a AMD R1606G Zen processor. That's 2 cores, 4 threads, 2.6 gigahertz. Wow, but it can boost to 3.5, it can boost to 3.5, 8 gigs by default of 2400 megahertz RAM, a whopping 32 gigabytes of internal storage. Bunny's hairs are everywhere. In terms of power, this thing's probably somewhere between a Switch and a Wii U. Now, I don't mean a Switch 2, I mean a Gen 1 Switch. That sounds bad on paper, because it is, but it's not that bad, because this is not needing to run a freaking screen. This is not using a battery, it plugs into the wall. It's able to squeeze as much performance out of this as its thermals can handle, which by the way, you're gonna want some thermal paste to replace the thermal pad in here. But anyway, why are we putting it on an Atari though, right? Like, the Steam Machine might end up being expensive. It's like $600 to $850, but this guy right here is... What? Are you kidding me? Yeah, so I think this might actually be a pretty good baby step. However, I'm gonna give you some warnings here. You know, this is weird. This thing is a little bit locked down. See, they fired their developer that was actually super cool and was making this thing as customizable as possible, right? Oh, they fired him and locked this shit down and then locked PC mode behind a USB stick that was an additional purchase. All you gotta do is flash older firmware on this and then set the password to blank. Then you're free reign, whatever you wanna do on this thing. They're like, oh no, trust me, you can install whatever you want on it. It comes with some, like, Linux-based distro called Atari OS, and it basically does freaking nothing, but you can install your own distro to it, right? Well, let's go back around here, and there's a couple of plastic tabs that you can get with your fingernail. Here, there's one here, and there's one in the middle. And that's how you remove your little dust trap. However, Atari's saying, oh no, don't worry, trust us, bro. We heard the backlash. You can put whatever you want on this thing. Yeah? Then why do I void my warranty by cleaning the dust trap? Atari, why do I void my warranty by cleaning the dust trap? So there was a little bit of a disagreement between the actual developers of this wonderful little mini PC and Atari, the ones who are actually in charge of selling the thing. Tale as old as time, Atari screwing over their developers that are actually cool, but Atari is just greedy and wants to watch the world burn? Maybe this is a 2600. Anyway, we're gonna open this thing up and actually give it a new SSD because that 32 gigs is not gonna cut it. Isn't that cool? These little tabs actually pull back and they don't peel off the adhesive. See, this is meant to be gotten inside. That's why they use this psycho fucking screw. See what I mean? There's a little bit of a disconnect. Aw, shit. You guys can see my serial number. Don't worry, I bought this thing off of eBay used. Now, why the hell do I even have this thing to begin with? Is it actually for the Steam Machine thing? No, I was actually planning on turning this into a Minecraft server, but I am waiting for my ISP to not fucking suck and actually get fiber out here, which ended up getting delayed by another year or two. So, for the time being, I figure we're going to have this Atari help us out a bit. And also because, while I did install Kubuntu on this thing, I'm gonna be honest, I'm getting a little tired of Ubuntu. Alright, now that the screws are out, we lift the lid forward and do not pull it up all the way. We gotta get the faceplate off. I just bumped the mic. There we go. Now we gotta be careful because they attach Wi-Fi and Bluetooth cables to the lid. So you know what? I'm just gonna remove the little Wi-Fi Bluetooth module entirely. Okay, lid is gone. Oh, let me pop these ribbon cables here on both sides. We are then going to remove this shield. First things first though, I'm gonna remove this old drive. I'm gonna put this in my retro computer. By the way, you might wanna get a little spacer because this shit does not come with it. Let's continue getting in this thing. We've got a screw here. We've got one, not in there. I guess it's in the, yeah, this one. We've got one in here. And under the little reflective prism for the light, there is one more. Again, make sure these ribbon cables are disconnected. We're gonna flip this bitch over. And this, on the back side, is your RAM. Since I thought I was gonna turn this into a Minecraft server, and I still plan to eventually, I've got some pretty high capacity RAM in here. The Atari is very particular about what kind of RAM can increase its RAM speed. If you want the full 3200 megahertz and 32 gigs, here's the model number, good luck. But that doesn't matter so much. Let's not worry about RAM speed right now, because these are butt expensive, but the Atari's original RAM is like 2400 megahertz, and that, let me put it in perspective. If you were thinking you could buy these Atari VCSs and gut them for their RAM to make a profit, the RAM sticks that come in this are 2 sticks of 4 at 2400 megahertz, and it looks like the RAM that the Ataris come with is selling for about $8 for both of them. So like $4 a stick, don't worry about it. I would go with the same RAM speed so you don't have to worry about the weird like clock issues and whatever. Get some 2400 megahertz laptop RAM. 2 sticks of 16 is gonna be your max. So 32 combined. It doesn't need to be 32, it could be less, but because the Atari's weird, it does need to be 2 identical sticks. You cannot have just 1 RAM stick in here. It actually will refuse to boot. Don't ask me. I'm just telling you how it is. But yeah, it just takes standard-ass laptop RAM. As a matter of fact, you see these little M2 things? One's for the expandable storage, one's for the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. Well, it's got an Ethernet port. If you don't care about the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth thing that keeps wanting to rip when you take the lid off anyway, I've seen some psychos on the Atari forums and on Reddit. Dude, this thing's eGPU capable. Yeah, you might be able to actually upgrade this thing in the future by having a little eGPU next to it. Maybe 3D print a custom dock for it or something, that'd be cool. But that's not what we're worried about right now. We're worried about doing this as cheap as possible and just getting a mostly stock with some minor upgrades VCS running games on Linux. I've already done a video doing Sonic Racing Crossroads on this thing, and you'd be surprised at how playable it is. But I want to put Bazite on it because Bazite has something built in that I think is going to be hugely beneficial for the VCS in particular. But I just thought I'd show you guys where the RAM is located because yeah, the 8 gigs is not a lot, that is true. And there is a awful thermal pad under here. Look at how discolored this is. That's heat damage. My brother, because he thought it would be funny, before I was able to get high-grade thermal paste in there, he thought it would be funny to try and load Minecraft shaders on here with the physics mod. And my god, it actually ran it, but at what cost? Well, I'll tell you the cost. I've never seen a thermal pad melt before. Replace the thermal pad. Anyway, gonna get these ribbon cables back in. These are for the front USB, by the way. So if those ever stop working, oh, I just bumped the fucking camera again. So if those stop working, check here. Since I've already got the highest capacity RAM that this thing can handle, on the highest speed it can handle, before this shit hit the fan, I bit the bullet and grabbed something thinking about the Minecraft server in the future. We are going to put a 2 terabyte WD-RAD SSD in here. And again, bear in mind that everything I am doing for this Atari is overkill. I want this thing to be as upgraded as possible, so when I do make a Minecraft server, I don't have to worry about this ever again, because I don't know how bad it's gonna get out there, but it doesn't look like it's gonna slow down anytime soon. And this brings us to my other point about why I think that this is a pretty good first step and might actually be a good idea with how the current climate is. This is not an NVMe. This is just an old SATA SSD. You can tell because it's got the 2 keyed slots here. This is not under the same level of price inflation as the rest of them. And yes, the Atari can take that despite the fact that it's keyed for an NVMe. I don't know why it's keyed for an NVMe because it can't take those. Yeah, it wants these. Maybe me and everyone on Reddit just happens to be getting the wrong ones because the Atari is really particular about its memory too. But yeah, no, it wants these guys. But you know what? Don't even worry about these. If you want to wipe the internal chip that's only got 32 gigs on it and load Bazite onto that, and then just have everything on external hard drives, or if you want to get something super small just for safety's sake, maybe like a 250 gig one, right? And then have your gaming on external drives. Dude, this thing's got USB 3.1 ports all around. It's built to use high-speed external drives. It's a little guy. And external drives, those are actually a pretty good price right now. You see what I'm getting at? You see what I'm cooking? I didn't think that going into 2026 the Atari VCS was going to be relevant, but here we are. Okay, and after some difficulty getting this together and cutting myself on this poorly milled piece of shit, we are ready to install the new drive. Gotcha. Aw, that's not going anywhere. Look at that. Let me grab the Atari's lid, stick her in. Gonna use the keyboard to brace this, because I gotta make sure I don't accidentally screw in these little wires. These horrible, horrible little... Oh god, why would you build it like this? Okay. Wi-Fi and Bluetooth are back installed. Oh shoot, look at that. The prism's a little out of alignment. Come on. There you go. Ooh, look at that shine! This is the worst part of getting these back together. This thing does not ever want to go back on. It seemed to like it when it was tilted. So I'm gonna start from the bottom. Kinda, yep. Let's get in from the bottom there. Oh, that's not stressful at all, the creaking. Are you in? I don't believe you. Yeah, I didn't think so. Yeah. Well, now you don't wanna close. This sucks. This sucks. I'm gonna wrestle with it off camera. Oh, God. I love plastic clips, Charlie. Jesus. Yeah, it's on. See, that's another thing why I wanted to upgrade this as far as I could go. Because I don't want to have to open this again. And what do you mean as far as it can go? Does the ATARI VCS have a limit on its, SSDs also? Actually, no. But I want a WD red for the read-write longevity of it, and because they're cheaper than the blacks, and they're like the same speed anyway, so what the heck? You'd be surprised how well you can get stuff as long as it's like not gamer marketed. Anyway, this old SSD M2 form factor 2 terabyte WD red, well, they don't actually make them higher than 2 terabytes that can actually go in the Atari. So, well, in theory, you don't have a limit to 2 terabytes. In practice, you do, because they don't make anything that'll go in there that's bigger than 2. At least not that's the kind of durability that I'm looking for. Before I put the back thing on, I'm gonna clean it. See, I don't want to dissolve that warranty is void badge of honor. I want that to be on there forever, so I can keep showing people how stupid that is. Oh, you want to clean the dust trap? Ha! Voids your warranty. Sorry, buddy. Your Atari, just inexplicably burnt itself out in some shitty update that we pushed? Oh, man. Real shame that. Hey, it looks like it's actually your fault because you cleaned the dust trap. See, if you guys think I'm sponsored by Atari, nah. I'm just saying, this thing's kind of nice. Not Atari. Atari's not nice, but I like the VCS. Can't believe we've been sleeping on this for years. I don't think that's popped in all the way. Oh my God, it's not. Look. Fuck! I just lost the screw. I don't care. I'll get it later. That's not my concern right now. Oh, well that was a lot easier the second time. You flush? You flush? Yeah, no gaps? No gaps? No gaps. Okay, where's that fucking screw? By the way, most of these are gonna be plastic, but you know how the Atari 2600 has fake wood grain? And you can just, wipe that down? Not this one. This wood is real. Do not use regular cleaning cloths on this. It's real wood, I can smell it. It's walnut. It's a very pleasant smell. You gotta admit, it's a good looking computer. Anyway, the back plate is never as much of a problem. Start from the bottom and get it all lined up. And literally just 1, 2, 3. See, now that's meant to be removed easily. This is your dust trap. Why is the warranty void? Time to make an installation media and install it on the VCS, which doesn't actually have an SD card port. So we're gonna use this adapter. You can just use a flash stick. It doesn't matter. These are freaking $12, 128 gigs at Best Buy. It's whatever. It's just I'm using this as an installation media for NVIDIA Bazite for my desktop computers. But this is a mobile AMD chip, so I need a different installer. Also, 32 gigs is gonna be plenty for installing Bazite. What is this? Is this just some bad silicone? What? This is a new SD card. Okay, gross. Bazite installs 8 gigs. So you can't do it from a disk. Not that we can, but you don't need to break the bank on an SD card or even a thumbstick. These are $8. We've got the Atari VCS with its new SSD in. We've got the RAM that we want. We've got everything hooked up. Got it hooked up to a capture card so we can actually record what we're doing. And we've got this little micro SD card with the adapter. We are going to flash Bazite onto this. Wait, that's the wrong connector. We are going to flash Bazite onto this with Windows. And there you, yay, completely empty. There's nothing, shut up Steam. There's nothing on here. All right, let's switch over to an actual display capture so you don't have to deal with this freaking autofocus not working. Okay, here we are on my main computer and we are on Windows 10, I promise. See, we're on Windows, ew! Anyway, we're just gonna search up Bazite. Here you go, download Bazite. Select your hardware. we're gonna be using it like a desktop, so that's fine. We're on AMD, but I would probably assume we should go with the older ones. I'm actually not sure. I'm just gonna assume we should go with older because it's an integrated graphics. The selected hardware does not support Steam gaming mode at this time. That's okay. We literally just want to launch into Bazite anyway. Trust me, with how limited the CPU is, we really don't want Steam starting by default anyway, so we're gonna change that once we do. And for desktop environment, give me KDE. All right, let's download Bazite. And while that is downloading, another thing that we're gonna use is Balena Etcher. You can really use anything to like flash the file, but I'm familiar with it, so that's what I'm using. Boy, I think we'll come back in a moment. I think Bazite's servers are, a little slow. God, they're slower than they were yesterday. I mean, okay, that's not as fast as, like, if it was plugged in directly to Ethernet, but that's still plenty. That just goes to show how many people are downloading Bazite right now. Anyway, you and I are in on this journey together, because I've actually never installed Bazite in Atari VCS. I don't know if anyone has installed Bazite to an Atari VCS. This might be a big waste of time. It might not work, but it probably will. Because in theory, this should be perfect for it. Okay, that took absolutely fucking forever. We are gonna open up Balena Etcher, select Flash from File, this one right here, and select Target. I know that I have a 32 gigabyte SD card, so it's gonna be generic storage 31.9, yeah, basically, and Flash. And it's gonna take a minute. Windows likes to freak out sometimes and have little pop-ups saying that you need to format drive G or whatever number it is or letter. Don't interact with those. Just wait for it to be done. Boy, it is making Aeroglass, a little fucky, isn't it? Well, about 5 minutes have gone by and now it's going through the validating process to make sure that it actually did that correctly. You can skip this. I've had some trouble with Bazite being corrupted on an install a couple of times, so I would recommend actually being patient and checking. You don't gotta. Besides, welcome to video editing, bitch. We can just switch right to when it's done. Just ignore that. It says it's done. I've got a little status light on it. Well, it do have a little light on. We are gonna eject. All right, you good? You're not good. Eject. You good now? Okay, neat. There you are. Had to move the mouse to the front. Okay, let's go ahead and give this guy a boot and see what it does. So what it's doing now is it is booting into a live environment. Oh my god, the Atari logo, I love it. A live environment is kind of like a live version off of the USB of Bazite's desktop environment. You get to like try it out and mess around with it before you actually commit to installing it, because it's running off of the USB stick. That does mean it takes forever to boot the first time, though. Boy, this display looks terrible. That's 60 hertz? At 4K? Oh my god, no wonder. They put it on the box. They say this console is 4K capable. Technically, it is. But, oh, that didn't scale right. Wait, why is the scale 160? Here, 100. There you go. Oh, now that's a lot nicer. Look at that. Nice and smooth. Look at that mouse. You know, if you keep shaking the mouse, it gets bigger. Come on. Come on. Can we get the whole screen? I want the mouse to cover the whole screen. Come on, I want it as big as that box. Let's just install it. Holy shit. Install to the internal memory. No. I want you to install to the 2 terabyte thing we just put in. Free up space by removing existing partitions. I don't think there are any. But anyway, yeah, just make sure you've got the right drive selected, because, you don't want to overwrite anything important. I mean, realistically, Atari OS is not important. As a matter of fact, it's actually kind of a problem to boot into that, which is why I disabled it, because it tries to do automatic updates that then relocks the BIOS. But I don't know, even though I am probably just going to use this as my own personal thing forever, I still like all of my modifications to be reversible, you know? Just for like collector's sake, because I got the wood grain one, dude, and I can't imagine they made a lot of these. User creation, Atari VCS 800, and my username is Atari. Begin installation. This, ladies and gentlemen, is going to take a while. Assuming it installs correctly, once it's finished, we should just be able to boot into Bazite and start setting it up. Aha, the installation has finished. It wants us to reboot the system. I'm going to shut it down, then I can remove the stick, and then we're gonna reboot it. and see how it did. Alright, we in, boys. I'm just gonna grab a couple things here. Some personal preferences. I don't want you floating. It's getting a little bit cut off. There might be some spillover. Overscan. Go on, do your thing. Yeah, so anyway, this is bizarre. You literally just, like, if you want something, look up if it's on here. It keeps closing itself. I'm gonna have to update that. Here, while you're doing that, I might go ahead and log into Steam. Dude, it is still downloading updates. If it's gonna keep going, I might just stop this and plug it into Ethernet. I'll tell you what, after it finishes installing these updates, I'm gonna take this VCS back down to my workshop, plug it into the Ethernet, and I'm gonna download some games to test. But, yeah, aside from needing to do the updates, that was pretty painless. I mean, heck, we're in the operating system right now. We can browse. Oh my god. Why, who is that handsome individual? I mean, it's working. We pop out the video, watch it on the desktop. Can't have that hang out wherever. We're not gaming yet, but we're definitely doing computer things. There's like no controls. Oh, there they are. You know what? Fuck you. I got controls in the taskbar, motherfucker! Look at that. I don't think it lets me skip. Oh, it does let me skip. See, that's handy for listening to music right there. I'm working on it right now. No, I'm way ahead of you. I'm way ahead of you. I'm getting these updates right now, bitch. Oh, it's done. Reboot? R. Jesus Christ. Wait, you just went for it, huh? Aw, see, this is what I remember Bazaar looking like. Much better. I'll tell you what, bitch. You want some Minecraft? Prism. Give me that. It's that easy. Only difficult part through the entire process was the fact that these stupid Xbox servers were down. But we good now. So we got Prism Launcher, we got the version of Bazaar that actually fucking works, and we got Steam installed. Time to take this Atari to the modem, plug it in, get some games to test. Alright, I left the Atari VCS running all night and I downloaded a bunch of games for us to test, but the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the BIOS and I'm actually going to set it so that we have 8 gigs of VRAM to use, because I don't know how much we're actually going to need. The VCS rarely needs over 4, 6 at the most, but some of the games that we want to test today are going to be extremely demanding, and they might need them, so we're gonna see how that works out. Besides, with 32 gigs installed, it's not like we actually are starving for RAM here. For today's benchmarks, we are going to start extremely light and then incrementally work our way up into harder and harder to run games until the Atari VCS literally cannot handle it anymore. Making sure to process the Vulkan shaders for each one of them, and going off of what my best guess will be as to what's going to be the easiest to run to what's going to be the hardest. Starting with something super light, Noita. Setting the game to a full screen 1080p, we are also going to use the Steam overlay and enlarge it so it's easy to read and everyone can see all of the readouts that you'd want. Now, Noita is capped at 60 FPS here. But if you're worried that we're missing what the true performance is, don't, because as you can see, as every particle is simulated and the scenes start to get chaotic, Noita actually already dips below 60 FPS and even stutters down into the mid-40s. This is not a good start for the VCS, considering this is what I thought would be one of the easier games to run, but it's not like the game is exactly unplayable. Other than the most chaotic moments, Noita is still pretty smooth, and it may just be an issue of everything that's going on the screen. So let's give it the benefit of the doubt and try a different pixel game. Moving on, we've got Dome Keeper, which is a new personal favorite of mine. And Dome Keeper, aside from loading the initial stages and transitioning between the cutscenes and gameplay, initially started at a buttery smooth 60 FPS at full 1080p. However, as the game went on and I started mining minerals, we were getting some pretty bad frame stutters. Going into the settings and setting the resolution to half completely eliminated these frame stutters though, even during the transitional cutscenes, and it didn't change the visual appearance of the game whatsoever. But this is the start of a reoccurring problem here, where even though the Atari VCS is marketed at 4K, it doesn't even want to be at 1080p. That being said, I did manage to play through the entire stage and even set a new clear record, with the only frame dip under 60 being when it nuked every creature on the screen all at once, only dipping to the mid-50s. Moving on to our next pixel game with Terraria, slightly embarrassingly, the Atari VCS did not want to maintain 60 FPS at 1080p, even in the starting area of Terraria. Once again, going into the settings and lowering it to 720p this time, fixed it right up and kept it at a stable 60 FPS the entire time. And it's not like with the GPU and CPU temperatures here that it was struggling to run this game. The Atari VCS just does not want to be around 1080p. It's more comfortable at 720. Again, I don't know if the advertisers were huffing cartridge dust or something, but I don't know where they got in their mind that this thing was ever going to game at 4K if Terraria is even slightly struggling at 1080p. But given that after this point I could not get Terraria to go under 60 FPS for any more than one little frame stutter, I decided it was time to up the ante and go to a 2D pixel art game that I know for a fact is poorly optimized. And as a matter of fact, even running a large, very poorly unoptimized mod pack itself. So welcome everybody to Starbound Frackin' Universe. Initially we are going to start at 1080p full screen and see how it does. And right off the bat, we are not off to a good start. It appears to be targeting 30 instead of 60, and there are bad frame stutters all around. And strangely, unlike the games that we previously tested and will test in the future, changing the resolution of Starbound did not make a difference to its frame rate whatsoever, indicating that this is not a GPU bottleneck, but a CPU bottleneck, which is likely the fault of the game itself, as what did change the frame rate was getting out of this heavy particle-infested area and going to a more empty portion of the screen. However, this increase to nearly 60 FPS did not last, as going into the ship brought it back down to 30, and then going back to the planet brought it up to 60. And it changes back and forth between targeting 30 and 60. This is probably because Starbound is one of those games where the interactions are actually tied to the frame rate, so it's likely that it is actually specifically targeting either 30 or 60. So having it be unstable between those two is switching it back and forth. This could potentially be fixed by specifically targeting 30 FPS, or installing a mod pack that is not an unoptimized piece of garbage like Frackin' Universe, or even installing mods that specifically are meant to optimize this poorly optimized game, or even just switching to Open Starbound, which is just inherently more optimized. But the point of this was to see if it could run a heavy unoptimized mod pack and have it be playable, and yes, it's playable. It's not stable, but you absolutely could play through the game like this. Up next is our first 3D game, and the first game to actually want to have a controller, Zodiac. Now, the Atari VCS does have a modern controller, but for some reason the triggers do not work on Bluetooth mode outside of Atari OS, and it's going to need to be wired. And given that I have plenty of wires going around here on this small table as it is, I decided to grab my old PowerA GameCube Switch controller and just use that over Bluetooth. And this is one of the moments that demonstrates why I wanted to choose Bazzite today for these quick tests. Unlike a lot of Linux distros, which seem to struggle with Bluetooth devices and Bluetooth controllers, Bazzite is one of the only distros I've ever seen where you can just connect a Bluetooth controller and it just works. As a matter of fact, the process is more painless than even Windows, where this PowerA controller used to have issues where every now and then after a Windows update, I would have to re-add the controller. But once the controller's been set up once on Bazzite, all you have to do is power on the controller again and Bazzite will sync to it automatically. What was not convenient was the game itself, mapping all of the inputs on the controller wrong despite pulling it directly from Steam Input. This is one of those bastard games that decides to use north, south, east, and west instead of A, B, X, and Y, resulting in none of the prompts matching whatsoever, and having the tiny GameCube B button be accept and the giant A button be decline. This is not something that can be fixed inside the game itself, it has to be fixed through Steam, and I was fiddling with the controls for what felt like 20 minutes just trying to get this test started. I love this game, but don't do this! That being said, once I finally got the game not feeling awful to control, the game was a buttery smooth 60 FPS, and no matter how high I cranked the settings, I could not get it to dip below that. This game ran flawlessly, And it's actually kind of entertaining to me, the fact that this three-dimensional game is running better than the 2D examples that we gave, but I guess to be fair, this game is not quite as complicated and doesn't have as much going on. As a matter of fact, I think this game might actually have been the smallest file size of any of the games we tested today. Up next for our light 3D games, we are testing Nightmare Kart, a free nightmarish kart racer on Steam that is not locked to 60 FPS this time, and stays well above it even at 1080p on the highest settings I could set. In some instances, even managing over 100 FPS on the ATARI VCS. This is not exactly a hard game to run, but it is nice to finally find something that is comfortable running at 1080p on the Atari. Up next, we have another gloomy game that is not happy running on Linux to begin with, so this should be quite the test for the Atari. Alice Madness Returns. Once again, starting this test at 1080p with all the settings on high, except for physics, because I have a feeling that's not going to go well. Initially, the tests were going very well. The game is saying that it's only 31 FPS, but the game is locked at 30 anyway, so this is actually ideal. Walking through the city and looking around, I could not get the frame rate to dip below 30 whatsoever, aside from one cutscene where the frame rate dips even on my most powerful computer, which is just kind of a problem with running this game on Linux, or from what I'm seeing, might just be a problem with the game's PC port in general, as even Windows users were complaining about this frame stutter. Given that we tested this on NVIDIA machines, strangely enough, it might actually be related to that, because this frame stutter was less severe on the Atari VCS than on our multi-$1,000 gaming PCs. So take that as you will. But overall, the game was running surprisingly smooth, up until we touched down into Wonderland, where the game started dropping into the 20s and rapidly decreasing in performance. That was until we opened up the settings and, surprise, surprise, set the resolution to 720p, at which point the game was perfectly happy. I won't waste a lot of time on this one because we actually have an entire video on the channel about the Atari VCS running this game and showing how well optimized it really is. You should check that out after this if you haven't already. But Sonic Racing Crossworlds, as per usual, is going to be everything on low settings at 720p, but we are going to try something a bit new with it that's built into Bazite by default. We are going to mess with GameScope, which is a built-in game upscaler that actually looks pretty decent because it doesn't overdo it. The difference is subtle, but as I zoom in here, you can see it does actually help increase the apparent resolution and smoothness of the game. Personally, I prefer it a little bit more pixelated because this is kind of just fancy anti-aliasing, but it does actually look pretty good, I've gotta admit. Nothing else special to report other than the fact that the controller identification of this game has gotten even worse over the updates, and this is not a Bazite problem, it's not an Atari problem. I can't get my controllers to sync on goddamn Windows either on my main PC, so fix your fucking game, Sonic! But anyway, rant aside, if you're going to be playing this game on the Atari VCS and don't want to have any frame drops whatsoever, even if you're doing local split-screen multiplayer, your target is going to be a locked 30 FPS at 720p with all low settings and maybe 75% render scale if you really need to. Up next is our first game where I actually had to skip processing the Vulkan shaders this time around because it was actually taking like an hour. I don't know what it was about Left 4 Dead 2, but we also decided to skip installing my 109 Workshop add-ons and just go for it, because it's not like Left 4 Dead 2 is a particularly challenging game to run. And once we got in there on 1080p high settings, yeah, it ran pretty smooth. Right up until a zombie hit the door wrong way and the entire game crashed. So I don't know, maybe I should have let everything download, but we would have been here for hours, and I was recording this on Christmas Eve, and I didn't feel like it. What I did feel like was torturing myself with a little bit of casual Team Fortress 2. And for some godforsaken reason, the menu was laggy as hell, but at the full 1080p on a mix of medium and mostly high settings with 2x anti-aliasing, we were getting anywhere between 85 to 109 FPS in single player. With the mere 15 seconds I was able to play in Double Cross on a pub-stomping lobby in casual, getting us anywhere between 59 and 147 FPS. Thus marking our second game that's actually comfortable at 1080p, if Left 4 Dead hadn't been crashing on us. Deep Rock Galactic, with a couple of performance mods meant to reduce the particles installed, was not off to a great start. Setting Deep Rock Galactic to its lowest preset made everything pretty pixelated, but it did get the frame rate well above 30 FPS, so we decided to test it out in a mission. And other than some septic spreader goo just generally being unoptimized and the initial rough landing, it was staying above 30 FPS even in the most chaotic scenes. I would say probably about 45 FPS on average. Which, you know, that's not the buttersmooth 60 you're looking for, but hey, that's better than nothing. I would definitely call this playable. And as a matter of fact, it was. I completely lost track of time having fun in this mission and actually ended up completing it. Taking a break from Steam for a moment, I decided to give the newest version of Minecraft a go with a few performance mods installed, and initially the results were... it certainly wasn't loading chunks as fast as I remember. And I also don't remember them fading in like that and just generally looking awful. Flying around in Minecraft a little bit, I was leaving a very clear trail of chunks that I had previously rendered. And while I was flying around, mesmerized at how bafflingly bad the new chunk rendering looks, I realized that I completely forgot to install a FPS counter in the top corner of the screen. And after realizing that the FPS counter that I wanted actually wanted an older version of Fabric, I ended up downgrading to that and creating a new Minecraft world. And after loading into that world and setting the render distance to 16 chunks while the game was at 1080p and unlocking the frame rate, I realized that the chunks were loading way faster and further than the newest version of Fabric, so that might have actually been a Fabric issue, not a Minecraft issue, because that is a lot smoother. Even flying around and trying to outrun the chunks, you can see clearly how much faster they're loading in this version of Fabric than they were previously. So good, in fact, that I decided to cut the resolution in half, because I know this is going to create problems, and enable complementary reimagined shaders. Setting the profile to very low, obviously, but after letting the chunks reload, we were actually maintaining above 30 FPS, never really dipping below it, and this is on 16 render distance. Sure, the resolution scale is set to half, which, what would that be, like 540p? But hell, this is a lot better than the console experience of Minecraft that a lot of us grew up with. Even flying around with the shaders, the frame rate maintained above 30 FPS. I could absolutely play through Minecraft like this, and I'm not sure which settings are actually set to low. Maybe it's because it actually is a little bit pixelated and hard to see, but man, this shader still looks damn fine, even on the very low setting. The same goes for the Nether, of course, which also looks fantastic in this shader and maintains above 30 FPS. It was struggling a little bit in some of the more intensive biomes, but in some of the smaller areas, it was actually getting almost to 60 FPS. I even managed to run an even more intensive shader by setting the scale factor just a little bit lower, and while there was a little bit of a flicker from the low resolution, it's actually doing it. Personally, I prefer the other shader over this more realistic looking one, but man, this still doesn't look half bad. I would love to get GameScope working on this and see if I can get it to look a lot smoother even with this low resolution, but I was not able to get that working in time for the flat pack version that I ended up installing. So if you guys want to see a future video about that in the future, let me know, but I just absolutely ran out of time with this one. And right when I thought I couldn't be more impressed with the little chip inside this Atari, I decided to give BioShock Remastered a try, which I had absolutely no hopes for given how piss poor the performance of the regular edition of BioShock was on the Switch 1. At 720p max settings, I was expecting the worst, but nothing could have prepared me for what I was about to see.
Artist would not fear the censor, where the scientist would not be bound by petty morality, where the great would not be constrained by the small. How do you like that, mister?
What the fuck happened to optimization in the last 10 years? I didn't know it was this bad. Yeah, if you're targeting 30 at 720p, you're easily gonna hit it. I mean, hell, it's like 50 most of the time, or higher. This game looks gorgeous. You know what doesn't look gorgeous, and realistically should be a lot easier to run than this? One of my favorite platforming games, A Hat in Time, running at 480p and maintaining, well, actually not maintaining 30 FPS. It is very stuttery and unstable, and I thought it might have just been the Christmas particles, because I used to be able to run this game at 60 FPS on this very Atari. But ever since there was the summer update, the optimization has gotten pretty bad, and it looks like each subsequential update has gotten worse. Now, this could be an issue with not processing Vulkan shaders, but that's because the game straight up refused to. It would just hang for half an hour at 0%. So I don't know what's up with this game in particular, but even with the lighting turned off, I would not call this one playable, which is a shame because this previously was one of the games I used to be able to run on this system at 60 FPS. Granted, it was still 720p, but if it can't even do like the lowest settings at 480, man, something's fucked up. And it's actually just straight up inexcusable after what we just saw with the previous title. And yes, you nerds, it runs Doom. Low settings, 720p, you kinda know the drill by now. Sorry if I'm seeming a little disinterested in this game. I really don't know how to play it, and I really don't care to learn how to play it because I keep getting bored out of my mind with all the cutscenes. I always was under the impression that Doom, you just hop in and shoot shit. But oh my god, every little thing is a goddamn cutscene, down to the combat takedowns being a fucking cutscene. And this is not a review of Doom, I'm probably gonna piss everyone off. It runs Doom. It runs Doom, that's the point. And after ignoring this game for years, the last time I played it being still called Overwatch 1 and Symmetra had 6 turrets, I decided to reinstall Overwatch 2 just for this video. But upon seeing the frame rate in the 10s on the fucking menu, and then it asking me to scan a QR code to log in, I decided to just Alt F4 and try something else. That something else being Sea of Thieves, which took like 15 minutes to load the page for the login screen, but it eventually did, and after I logged into my stupid Xbox account on Steam, it got stuck loading supplies for like an hour. So, after verifying the integrity of the game files and going through all of that trouble to log out and log back in again, I was greeted with no corrupt files and stuck loading supplies indefinitely again. So, does Sea of Thieves run on the Atari VCS? I don't know, because it wouldn't let me try. I get that the servers are down because there's a lot of traffic over Christmas, but this is getting a little insane at this point. So I decided to skip ahead to our final test, which I thought was going to be a single-player experience. The experience was needing to log on to my Rockstar account because it didn't trust this new PC it saw me logging on to, and then the menu being so laggy that 4 different times I had to open Linux's equivalent of Task Manager and forcibly kill the process. Kill. Not suspend, not send a stop request, kill, because it refused to close. And after this menu that is nothing but text and images was so laggy that every input would take 15 seconds to register, I eventually got the game to start. And it got stuck on a loading screen at 1 frame a second, and it maintained this for about 13 minutes until the Rockstar Games launcher tried to send me a notification that one of my friends was online and crashed Red Dead Redemption 2 for the final time. At which point I decided to call this test concluded, because I was tired and was so done. And there you have it. That is all the time I have for this video here. Again, if you guys want to see me go more in depth with some of these games on the Atari VCS, let me know. Could the operating system be a little lighter for the sake of this poor console? Oh, absolutely.
but I just wanted to get something done quick as like a little proof of concept of like, oh dang, is this what we're gonna have to deal with for the next few years going forward, or if not longer? Maybe this is the new norm, you know, if the AI data center thing continues on the way it is. I set out as a journey to see how relevant a mini PC could really be. How low of a computer can we be happy with? And frankly, aside from some dumb AAA games or some very poorly optimized indie games, I didn't even bother with Cult of the Lamb, this was actually okay. This is livable, especially for something that you might spend like $150 on altogether. I mean, if nothing else, it is a good little machine that I like to use to test Linux distros before I commit my main PC to them. I really enjoy having this thing. I'm really looking forward to setting up a Minecraft server on it. I think it's going to be able to handle it. But for now, I'm absolutely down to do more goofy-ass tests on this thing. So if you guys have anything else you want me to test on this Atari, or you really want to see another part to this, let me know. Subscribe for more, because I've got a lot of other weird tech videos in the works right now that you are not going to want to miss. So make sure you subscribe for more, notification bell and all that shit, and then YouTube still doesn't tell you. So you can just join my Discord if you got Discord. We do the video alerts there as well, and it's way more reliable. Or we got a patron, you can just check those out. $1 a month, watch the videos completely ad-free and early too. That's a pretty good deal, huh? And look, it doesn't have to be an Atari. You know, what did they make, like 50,000 of these things? I can't imagine they're going to be around much longer. So if you miss out on this one, I mean, it doesn't have to be an Atari. If it's like any other, like, used, like, borked mini PC, hell, it's probably easier to work on than the Ataris. They're not trying to lock down the BIOS. But, like, I really hope that this was a good, like, eye-opening experience for a lot of people of, like, half the time, it's the game, not even the system, in terms of optimization issues or even Linux support. And I kind of hope that it's showing people that, you know, it's actually not that hard to get into Linux, especially with these distros that are, like, super hands-off with the terminal and just have a bunch of stuff pre-downloaded that just works. I can't tell you how many hours I spent on other distros trying to get some of my weirder controllers to work that just never did. But if anything beyond the entertainment value of trying to turn an ATARI VCS into a Steam machine, I hope this shows all of you that if you want to get away from Windows and the Steam machine ends up being incredibly expensive, just know that you do have options, and it's not that hard to get into Linux if you're switching from Windows, unless you've got a very specific set of programs and workflow. But even then, there's some pretty good alternatives out there. And even if you're not in the want to get a mini PC, you've got a decent machine, but you do want to start taking baby steps into Linux, hey, something like this might be a good idea. Something to goof around with if you're nervous about messing up your computer with like different distro installs and different drives and whatnot. Have it be a completely different machine that's just like a little 54-watt thing that plugs into the wall, and that's max too. Remember, like the overhead light bulb in your kitchen probably consumes more power than this little computer. And it's running the footage you're seeing right now. That's impressive. I can't believe I'm saying it. We really are living in a strange time when I'm actually impressed with and enjoying the Atari VCS. Good God. Well, that's all the time we have for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you think in the comments below. You know, that shit helps the algorithm. And I will see you guys in the next weird video, or whatever I decide to release next. Who knows? Alright, bye everybody.